Hello and welcome to another edition of Choose to Challenge. I am LaWanna Bradford with the Bradford Group as well as principal of the Bradford Group Consulting. And I am so excited because it is Women's History Month. And I know you're thinking, well, LaWanna, I don't know. That doesn't look like a woman next to you. Well, you're exactly right. It's Barry B. Mixon. And if you haven't heard of who Barry B. Mixon is, I'm going to turn it over to him to let him tell you a little bit about himself. But I am just so excited that he's here because one of the things that I often encourage women is we are not in a vacuum. If we're looking to elevate and to expand, we need the collective of humanity in order to do that and sharing our lived experiences. And this conversation, Barry is going to share some things with us about what he's seen and how his experiences have been unfortunately shared by many women who we're calling this topic women who are unsung and unheard. And it's a topic that we want to get into to have you become a little bit more sensitive when you run across these women, because I guarantee you at least once a month you've seen someone in this position. But before we turn it over, Barry, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about what you're doing beyond being a gemologist and the host of the Gem Hunter Stories on E360 TV.
Okay. All right. So thank you, LaWanna, for a wonderful intro. And hello to everyone. My name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a gemological storyteller. I guess it's easier to go back to how it all started. I'm from New York originally, was in the Marine Corps for 14 years. I came to Chicago in the summer of 1992, and in the winter of that same year, I was homeless. I was homeless for a year here in Chicago. I'm not from Chicago. I'm from New York originally, so I was marooned here. I had too much pride in me to go back home, so this was it. And from there, I began to understand what it means to be not just homeless, but literally have no identity, your value. Reason why I was homeless wasn't because of drugs or alcohol, it's because of anger. There was a lot of things going on in my home, in my house when I was growing up. Alcoholism was a serious disease in my house. My mom had it. So basically, I thought my name was everything else other than Barry B. Mixon for pretty much until I was like 12. So I grew up with that identity that I was nothing. And that manifests into, despite all the things I had done in the service and medals and ribbons in Iraq and Afghanistan, I still had that inside of me. And from there, I began to develop a consciousness of what is value? What does value mean? How could someone, I had 3 degrees at that point, biology, chemistry, biochem, again, Marine Corps, medals, ribbons, all kinds of stuff. And yet here I was living in dumpsters and eating out of garbage cans and sleeping underneath cars and things of this. So I began to think to myself, if that can happen to me, what could happen to a lot of people? And in this case, women, what happens to women when they're put in that situation? Women, let's just say women, that's already hard. And then kick it up to another level, women with children. So that's a whole completely different dynamic. So when LaWanna was asking me about the show, when we were talking about Women's History Month, I felt really honored to be asked and a part of this, because that's the discussion that's really not spoken about. What happens? I survived. Here I am today. I'm a gemological storyteller. I travel around the world. I lived before the pandemic, lived in France 4 or 5 months out of the year. I just got a congressional medal and an Oscar. I'm not an actor. But I got an Oscar for global teaching of the year. So how does that happen? How does someone live in a garbage can for a year and yet this is where I'm at? So this show gives me an opportunity to kind of tell the survival story, and then just how I got here, and kind of go like in the Marine Corps. You don't leave your brothers and sisters behind. So this is my effort to go back, to let people know, let's go back and reclaim and re-energize and empower the people that are still in those situations.
And thank you for sharing that. And so to those that are listening, what Choose to Challenge is about, it's taking those conversations that aren't so comfortable. It's daring us to sit down and to unpackage the ash and trash, to challenge the status quo, and to raise our consciousness so that we, in fact, can be the change that we wish to see in the world. So Barry just shared his experience about being homeless. And when we're talking about Women History Month, it's so easy to go back through our history books and pick all of these great women who've done great and amazing things and herald them as just amazing, right? And it's easy to look around us at our living history. But I want Barry to talk a little bit about what it's like to be this valued human being, right? Because we're all divinely placed here to have just life happen, because sometimes it does. We never know what may hit us and cause us to be in a situation that is dire, and in the worst situation where you're unable to provide for yourself, you don't have a roof over your head, and you have no place else to turn but to the streets. And these women, I feel, need to be celebrated. Because it's so easy for us to sit in a seat of judgment and think, she's on drugs, she's mentally unstable, she's lazy, whatever biases are out there. So this month, the theme, the hashtag for Women's History Month is Break the Bias. So I hope this conversation helps you to really recheck, reframe your mindset when you see women who are on the street. And Barry, I want to turn it over to you right now, because when we think about this with the pandemic, right? We have 330 plus million people in the US. And we have over 500,000 people who are homeless. And people may think, well, that's not a lot. Well, to me, yeah, it is. I mean, literally, they have no place to go. And then half of that are women. All of us have seen someone who's homeless, whether we've given some money or maybe passed them by and we thought about something. But Barry, let's talk about, these are the numbers that I'm giving you from 2020, right? So now we've had the pandemic. We know women have been hardest hit financially. Many have had to come off the job. Many jobs were closed. When you're thinking about where women typically are working predominantly, where are those women? Think about it. The moratoriums are over. So if you're not able to pay your rent and you have no family, where did you go? Think about, we're in the middle of the pandemic. Shelters. I know I saw some things on the news that made my skin crawl because shelters had to close, and where did the people go? So let's dig into that, Barry, and because I pray that whoever's listening just kind of wakes up, has a softening of your heart as you think about that original number of 500,000. What has it actually grown to? Right?
It's, first of all, the first thing I want to do is remove the myth that homelessness happens because it's easy to say, oh, that person is an alcoholic, or that person is a drug addict, or that person just, made bad choices. Let me say that again. I graduated with 3 degrees from 4-year college, okay? 4-year State University of New York, biology, chemistry, biochem, okay? I had ribbons and medals, fought in Iraq, all these things happened, and yet here I was. So one of the things that I get people to understand is that homelessness is not an on and off kind of thing. You don't go to bed one night on a Tuesday and you're fine, and then the next morning you wake up, you're homeless. I came to Chicago. I had a job, but because I was the last one hired, I was the first one fired. And then I got sick, and then something else happened, then something else happened, and something else happened. And then one day I woke up and I just realized the sun just didn't shine anymore. And even in telling you this, it's almost like you have to go back into a dark hole. It's like reliving it's like PTSD. You're constantly reliving that day, or maybe if you had grandparents that lived during the Depression, you remember how it just slowly one day there was no more food to eat, there was no place to live, and it wasn't until probably December homelessness really started for me about the movement towards homeless started October of 92. It wasn't until I remember the exact day was December 15th, 1992, when I realized this is it. I am really homeless. It's no longer just something in a book or theory. I remember being a kid, asking my father, "Where do homeless people live?" Back in the '60s. And my father said, "Oh, they're under bridges." Well, I was now that guy living under a bridge, and as hard as the story that I can tell you, homelessness is. Think about being, I'm 250 pounds. Well, okay, I'd like to get to 250. I'm like I'm gaining a little weight, so I want to be 250. I'm about 260 now. That's cool. But 14 years in the Marine Corps, I'm a big guy and everything else. So there was security consciousness. I mean, I'm a big guy. People don't mess with me for the most part. But imagine being a woman. Imagine being a woman and having the security, the norms, the things that you were told that was supposed to happen to you are gone. I can't tell you how many people I met that have college degrees that were there with me. I can't tell you how many people I met, guys who were bank presidents. I met guys who had successful, thriving businesses, and they would sit there and tell you how they had stores all over. And yet here they were. And then with the women that I met during my journey, it had to be horrific is not even a word for them, because they were constantly under siege. They were constantly, I mean, it's like here you are a lamb in a wolf cage, in a tiger's cage, because there's so many predators. There's different hierarchies of people being homeless. There were people like myself who were like wide-eyed, like, oh my God, what's going on? Then there's the people who have been around there for a little bit, and then there's the vets, men and women, the people who literally, there's a woman on 79th Street here in Chicago who, well, it was 29 years ago when I was homeless. I saw her 2 months ago. And she came up to my car asking, and I purposely did not show her my face. I turned my face because I remember her, and I didn't want her to see me here in a car and everything else, because me and her got into it once, because, in fact, one of my first battles was with her, because I made the mistake and thought I was going to camp out in an area that she had secured. And she was a little woman. You can tell she was beautiful at one point. She had very high cheekbones, beautiful ebony skin, but she had been homeless again 30 years now since I saw her. And she was already there. So the key thing to homelessness, what people don't understand, is hope is actually a wonderful thing and a horrible thing, because each day wake up, you imagine wake up, okay, today's the day something's going to happen. Nope. Today's the day. Nope. Today's the day. Nope. So after a while, you get tired of getting your heart broken. I had people who literally told me to stop thinking positively because it's going to hurt me in the end. And what you see with women is they just get, no matter where they were, they just get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, because they're trying to protect whatever dignity that they have. And then if they have children, it's just it's horrendous because they're trying to survive at every step. Where are you going to sleep? Where are you going to? And the kids are kids. They're like, "Mommy, we're hungry. Mommy, and this." And it was just a horrific experience for people that are homeless. But the thing that hurts the most, two things that's the worst thing of homelessness. One, you feel invisible. Imagine being 6'1", 250 pounds, all the things that I've done, and people walked past me like I was invisible. You know, they just, it's not even talking about the ones that when you're begging for money or things like this, just walking past. And, you know, sure, I want to have a conversation about biochemistry, but nobody wants to hear biochemistry when you're a bum. Nobody wants to give you a job when you can't fill out the second line of the application, you know, the one that says address. So imagine the disrespect that women get just because of this society, because they are quote unquote women. And then you're a woman, and now you're homeless. So you're even lesser than less. You're even more inferior because you're homeless. And then of course a lot of people think, well, you're homeless, that means you have no problem sleeping for sex, having sex for money. You have no problem. I can take you because you don't have any value. And there were instances when, in the Marine Corps, they teach you. When my mother taught me how to be a gentleman, and there were times when I had to step in to, I can only describe them as wolf packs, literally looking for their prey. And I would have to use my size or just use my line of logic to say, we're all in this together. All of us are suffering. All of us are cold. Do you really want to put this woman, exact words I told someone, do you really want to make her feel any less than she already does? Look at her son. And her son was there crying. I think he was about 6. And I guess maybe I touched their hearts. I'm talking about the guys. And I remember the woman just feeling, she just cried and cried and cried. She was like, I don't know what would have happened to me. Well, she knew what was going to happen to her. She was talking about she doesn't know what was going to happen to her afterwards. Because had she been attacked, she says, I'm lost. I'm gone. So that's the key thing I try to get people to understand. Stop thinking that homelessness is just this thing that people just almost choose. Like, oh, I guess I'll be homeless today. Now, I'm sorry, 1992. Then 2008 happened when the whole market crashed. That was really I caught the pre-wave. That's what I like to tell people, because as bad as it was, there was homeless people, but it's still, the numbers weren't what they are today. So 2008, it got worse because they lost their jobs. So now you add homelessness to a pandemic. So the shelters and things that you could go to, and again, that's another thing, you can't just walk into a shelter. It's a hierarchy. I didn't start living into a shelter, I think probably like 5 months. 5 months passed before I actually lived in a shelter, because they was always, either I didn't know where they were, or because I got there late and I didn't know how to get in. I didn't have a friend who knew somebody, to get in. So I slept in abandoned cars and buildings for at least the first 5 months, 6 months.
I want to jump in here for a second. So for those that are watching, we are here, believe it or not, we are celebrating Women's History Month with this conversation about homelessness, because Barry and I felt it was very important to talk about a segment of our population that needs to be recognized. And those are women who are unsung and unheard. And Barry, you and I spoke about my experience. I used to do street ministry. And the one thing, and I'm so grateful for this, because let me rewind a little bit. In college, I was involved with, it's called the Transient Society. And it was like the halfway house where individuals that are coming off the street, you're helping to acclimate them back to society and getting interview skills and clothes and housing, etc. That was the nice side of it. But when you got into ministry, where now you're on the streets with this particular church that I was with, they said the only way that you can go out is you got to live it and experience it. I'm like, live and experience what? And they said, you got to know what it's like to be homeless. And I'm like, oh, you're kidding, right? And they were very serious. They said, because you have to have a level of sympathy, compassion that right now you don't have, because you're still in, you don't realize it. And they were right, that you have some biases that are there. So we want you, obviously you're not homeless. We know that you have your escape. You eventually will go to your home, but we're going to put you in a situation where I had to sleep on the in the streets. I was given a little sleeping bag, the thinnest sleeping bag you could imagine. I don't know where that sleeping bag came. But so it wasn't like, oh, LaWanna's packing it with a nice sleeping bag. No, they gave you, it's like, we want you to really experience this. No pillow, just the sleeping bag. And I said, okay, well, where's our food, since we got to go out? Barry, they said, well, you got to find it. So I go, what do you mean? They said, well, there's dumpsters. You can go beg, you can whatever, but you're on your own. But in the journey, we did have to truly go and forage in the trash for food. And we had to eat it. So, I mean, it was, and I remember just thinking, and I'm getting real emotional now, because I thought, wow, I've got an out. I'm here being of service and wanting to be this vehicle or vessel of hope. But in the back of my mind, I know I'm going to eventually go home and get in my warm bed. And one of the things we had to do was, and this was years ago, so I know now because of lawsuits and things, restaurants can't do this. But back then, restaurants would bag up their leftover food, and the different soup kitchens and would give them out, or homeless people would be in the back of the restaurants and get the food. Well, my favorite food is pizza. And so I went to Pizza Hut, and they wrapped up in this little clear bag leftover pizza. So this is a pizza that had been served to people. And that I had to eat of that food for 1 week. And it was life-changing. It was so life-changing. And to this day, I cannot just walk by a homeless person. And I've had people say, well, you don't know where that money's going to go. Why are you giving them the money? I'm like, well, God knows my heart. What they do with it is what they do with it. I've even and my parents are like, well, what are you crazy? I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm just led. But I've even picked up a homeless person, put them in my car. Where do you need to go? I've brought a homeless person to my home and fed them. And I know there's a safety thing, but I felt led. I felt compelled. Taste. But again, with the assurance that I'm going home. Now you're talking about these women that you've seen that are already feeling like there is no hope, unvalued, unloved. You've had to pull people off of them because they're about to be violated, and possibly when you walked away may have been. But yet, again, I'm talking to the women that are watching. Please, I beg you, when you see someone, check yourself and ask, what biases that I have, that I may have, that are causing me to judge this person. Because when I was out there, like you said, Barry, a lot of educated people. A lot. Brilliant minds. But life happens. It just happens. I'll turn it back over to you.
And well, first of all, thank you for the things that you did do, because it warms my heart. Because when I have these conversations with people who have experienced homelessness or have given part of themselves, whether it be money, whether it be time, whether it be a conversation, even just looking someone in the eye, letting them feel like they're human beings helps so much. It's not about, you don't always have money to give. But if you can just look them in the eye and just let them know that I know that you're there, I know that you are human. I am sorry that you're going through what you're going through, but I'm going to still respect the fact that you exist. That's one of the hardest things. That in when I pause, I'm pausing because I can feel the darkness. And it's not bad. I mean, it's just you have to go back in it. It's amazing. And the thing that you remember the most, the thing that I cried the most about, was all the things that I threw away. You think about that half-eaten bowl of soup. Oh my God. I remember one night thinking, I was walking down Michigan Avenue, and they had one of the restaurants there, Applebee's, something like that, Bennigan's. And there was this guy eating this soup. It was like pea soup. And I remember the last time I had pea soup, and it was so delicious. And I remember I didn't eat the whole bowl. I left, something happened. Oh, business. I got busy. And I remember crying because I would have given anything for that bowl of soup. That sweater that just had that little hole in it that you said, "Oh God, I got to get a new sweater." Oh my God, that sweater would have been the greatest gift in the world if I had gotten that back. And you just think about all the things that you've gotten rid of that was old, that was thrown away, that was a little torn, things of this. Those are the things that you miss. And like you said, you it's wonderful when you know tomorrow is going to come and that you're okay. That, like right now, you and I are sitting here, and after this show, I might go to the refrigerator, or I could just reach over and get something to drink that we take for granted. Bathing. I had an afro, I had hair, oh my God. One day I got on the bus. I had to go to the other side. I tried to widen my horizons, and I heard there was a shelter on the north side of Chicago. So I took the bus, and the guy let me on, the bus driver, and it was an empty bus. It was early in the morning, about 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, and the bus was empty. And I went in the back of the bus, and people got on, and I smelled so bad. I mean, I think I hadn't bathed maybe a week and a half, and I remember people got on the bus, and I smelled so bad that it was a packed bus, maybe 45 minutes, a packed bus. And people, even though it was a packed bus, everybody scrunched up towards the front to get away from me. And the bus driver eventually stopped the bus, and he said, Sir, I am so sorry what you're going through, but you got to get off the bus. And I'm sorry. And I had to just I got off the bus. Sorry, I meant to turn it off. I was wondering where it was. I felt so bad. I got off the bus. I didn't argue with him, mostly because I was just so embarrassed. Everybody was looking at me, and there was various looks, like some looks of pity, some looks of anger because I was slowing down their trip to work, some furious because I smelled so bad. And there's nothing that you can say. I can't sit there and say, "Hey, do you know what I used to do? Hey, do you know I have this? Hey, I got an A in my organic chemistry exam. Did you know that?" You can't say that. All they see you is this pseudo human being that had the nerve to get on the bus that they were on, smelling like that. How dare you? And I remember literally, I remember crying for like hours. It seemed like I was never going to stop crying because I couldn't believe that this is where my life is. And what I want you to do, since this is Women's History Month, I want you to I want your audience to look at me and don't see me. See me as if I was a woman who had experienced it. See me if I had a child and had experienced that. And because of a woman naturally is going to love and care and nurture her child. Then whatever little bit she gets, she gives to the child. So therefore, she's already starving on top of starving in order to care for her child. And that's what I want people to get out of. Hopefully this show is like, well, no matter what you see in me, I want you to know it's exponentially worse for women, just by virtue of the fact that they're a woman. I'm not talking about strength and survival. I'm just saying that they need even more strength. They even need more survival skills. They need even more compassion, because it is so dangerous out there. Yeah, I mean, I live in Chicago, and those of you who live in Chicago, we know we have gun battles and people every day. Imagine that in a pandemic, in crime, in predators out there in the street, and it's pick a day, I mean, 10 below, 20. This is Chicago. Winter starts here. I became homeless in the winter of 1992. So, maybe that was my mission. I promised God that if I ever got out of homelessness, and there was so many days that I thought homelessness was never going to end. Literally, the sun just didn't shine anymore for me. That I would spend the rest of my life helping people discover the value of their stories. And that's what I do with Gemstones, getting people to understand all these gemstones. This is the symbol of my company. All these gemstones come from in bad places, ecologically, mountain holes and mountains and in dirt and buried for thousands, tens of thousands, millions of years. And yet out of that comes the gemstones that you see. And what I try to do when I work with homeless people, when I work with homeless women, is really get them to realize that there's still that gemstone. That's still that thing that they want to do, that they wanted to be, that little girl, that young woman. Those dreams are still there. They just have to somehow create a new story in their mind. Not that it's happening for real, but in their mind. That's how they survive. And
I want to just interject, because what you said is so powerful. So for those of you that are listening, Barry and I are here celebrating Women's History Month, talking about women who are unsung and unheard, and those are the homeless women that we have in and around the United States population, but around the world. And what he just said was, he is working to help women understand their worth, their value, and to celebrate that. Now, you may be thinking, okay, but I'm not homeless. You may not be. But you or someone you may know is going through hell at home, verbal abuse, physical abuse, feeling of self-worthlessness, thoughts of suicide, where somehow you've got to tap into the truth of your beauty, not just external, your internal beauty, and realize that you were placed here for this appointed time. There will never be another you.
Right.
You got to find the way, that strength to be able to love and celebrate yourself, even in life's darkest moments. You live long enough, it may be a physical battle that you're dealing with, meaning, cancer, anything can hit you and cause you to get in that same state of mind that those women on the street are feeling, that they're feeling like no one's hearing me, no one cares, no one's celebrating me. And if you're there and you're wondering, I hear you, LaWanna, that's me, raising your hand, that's me, I'm there. I every day I go home to abuse. I'm feeling less than. But you don't know how to get out of it. There are resources that are there for you. But there's also this amazing man sitting next to me, Barry B. Mixon, who has been to hell and back. And God has risen him up, I believe, for a time as this to deliver this amazing message about being a gem, understanding your value. And if you want to talk to someone to give you encouragement, to give you the tools and the resources to come back, come back to who you were supposed to be, please reach out to Barry. Barry, I want to take myself down and I want you to just, whatever's on your heart, just talk to women who are out there. And I just pray that this show has broadened your awareness, giving you a level of sensitivity and empathy and compassion that maybe you didn't have, but more importantly, is allowing you to take the first step to break the bias. Barry.
There's so many things I could say. I guess the biggest thing that I get people to understand is that you are special. You are special, and I'm not saying that in a kind of kumbaya, holding hand. You are special and everything, because it's deeper than that. You have to understand that, and that's why I use gemstones. You know, there are thousands. There's 4,000 different minerals on Earth. 4,000, and of those, maybe 200 are gem quality. And you have to understand that a ruby, a sapphire, citrine, those are rare. Just the molecules coming together, creating that thing that's a gemstone. Well, you're rare. You are rare. Yes, you are a human being. Yes, you are a woman. But there are things, the similarity between you and the gemstones is the fact that it's not that, let's say a ruby. A ruby is made out of aluminum oxide. Very common. Aluminum oxide is oxygen is the most abundant element on Earth. Aluminum is the third. But out of that, if you just take a hint of chromium, another element, you create the red color. That's what a ruby is. So what's that thing inside of you that makes you special? Only you really know that. You know the stories that you have been told. You know the things that you did as a young woman, as a little girl. You know, you used to do this, you used to do those. Those things, as bad as it is, those things are still within your reach, are still within your grasp. But you have to do the most important thing that you can do, which is tell yourself a story. That's why I call myself a gemological storyteller, because some of the same characteristics, many of the same characteristics you see in gemstones, you see in women. And the only difference between a diamond, a ruby, an emerald, sapphire, pearl, citrine, tourmaline is we know their stories. We know what they've gone through. We know anybody who says, I'm going to look for a diamond, knows that they're going to have to get all this money, $250 million just to start looking. You got to dig. Most diamonds are 190 to 190 degrees. 90 miles in the earth. Takes the temperature of 3,600 degrees, 70,000 pounds per square inch to make that diamond. So the things that you're going through, if you start to change it in your mind, see how the things that you've gone through, the things that you've learned will help you. It may not seem like it, but it will help you get past this. It will help you become together, but you have to tell yourself that. You have to take a movie, a music, take something and create that sound in your mind that... And it's not easy. You have to remind yourself, here's the book. This is the book that I used to use all the time, called As a Man Thinketh. And in that book, I won't go over the whole thing, but it says, and I'll use, instead of as a man thinketh, I'll use the verb, the pronoun she. So it starts off with, though your circumstances may be uncongenial, they shall not long remain so, but perceive an idea and strive to reach it. You cannot travel within and stand still without. Here is a youth, hard pressed by poverty and labor, confined long hours in an unhealthy workshop, unschooled and lacking all the arts of refinement, but she dreams of better things. She thinks of intelligence, of refinement, of grace and beauty. She conceives of and mentally builds up an ideal condition of life. The vision of a wider liberty and a larger scope takes possession of her. Unrest urges her to action, and she utilizes all her spare time and means, small though they are, to the development of her latent powers and resources. Very soon, so altered has her mind become that the workshop can no longer hold her. It has become so out of harmony with with her mentality that it falls out of her life as a garment, is cast aside. And with the growth of opportunity which fit the scope of her expanding powers, she passes out of it forever. Years later, we see this youth as a full-grown woman. We find her a master of certain forces of the mind, which she wields with worldwide influence and almost unequal power. In her hands, she holds the cords of gigantic responsibilities. She speaks, and lo, lives are changed. Men and women hang upon her words and remold their characters, and sun-like, she becomes the fixed and luminous center around which innumerable destinies revolve. She has realized the vision, not the idle wish, but the vision of her youth. She has become one with her ideal. And that is directly from this book. And I used to read that quote every single day, every hour of every day, because the thing that got me was not that she didn't get the homegirl hookup. She didn't win the lottery. The only thing that changed was her mind. And when you're homeless, I didn't have anything else, so I'm going to go with that. And later on, I realized some of my Christian friends, people who are more experienced, told me that all that stuff you just said, I said, yeah, they said that's in the Bible. And I was like, for real? Because I didn't go to church. I'm like, for real? I didn't feel like asking God for prayer because I felt like God would say, oh, now you want help. You didn't believe in me before. So what did God do? God gave me a different book. He gave me a different, with his word still in it, but he gave it to me in a way that I can understand. So find that book, find that history, find that mentor. And women have so many mentors, not just Oprah, but you got Madam C.J. Walker. You got just so many women. To me, when you say woman, you say obstacles, you say things that you have to over. That's the beauty of, to me, with women. Women understand pain. Not saying it's easy. It's just that women are, I think women, I'm telling you a secret, LaWanna, women are stronger than men. I know all my male friends are like, what did you? I know women are stronger because there were things, I can tell you all kinds of homeless stories, but imagine it was just me. There were homeless women there with 2, 3, 4, 5 kids, 5 babies. And they still had class. They still had dignity. They still did whatever, even if they just took their hair and moved it to the side and took some WD-40 or so. I literally had a person, she said, it was a woman. She was actually from Jamaica, and she said, boy, you still have to look good. I don't care what's going on. I was like, okay. She literally took WD-40 and just pressed her hair, and she said, wow. I was like, go on, girl, go. So let me not, I don't want to leave you with this, oh God, life is, I'm just saying, ladies, you all have the strength because you're women. Because of what you have to go through, you have not only the strength within inside of you, but you have beautiful, empowering women like LaWanna, like so many other women who can help you refine, regain, and have your story. You talk about unsung, unheard. A lot. They've been unsung and unheard too, some point in their life. See what they've done. If you can't figure out, see what they've done and try to take their story, incorporate it in your story, and the best thing.
I love that. And I've heard it put in a different way. Sometimes when you haven't yet found your story, you borrow someone else's to give you that anchor that element of hope.
Yep.
So that, because sometimes life hits us so hard that it becomes so buried, we forget. We forget who we lose our identity, our own identity, right? We don't even know. We become invisible to ourselves.
Yep.
And that is actually one of the scariest places to be, when you look at yourself in the mirror and you don't recognize you. Think about what I just said, ladies. In fact, I want to challenge you who are watching. When's the last time you really looked at yourself in the mirror? Just paused and looked at yourself and said, I love you. Scars and all, I love you. It's not an easy thing to do.
And let me add,
we want to challenge you to come from behind the mask and have the conversation. Come from behind the mask. Because it's going to be a very different look. And it's not always easy, because we fear, everyone wants to be accepted, right? And respected. And you think, well, if I share this, I may be thought less of because people see me here. I know I had the opportunity to be in a 3-day workshop I took my mom to see Oprah, and it was actually a 3-day workshop with her. And when I heard her story, I was like, OMG.
You talk about Oprah's story.
Yeah, Oprah.
Yeah.
When she just got very raw, and as she went there, very emotional. Like you said, when you are going back and you're communicating from a point of truth, you're allowing yourself to be exposed again, and you are reliving it, reliving the pain, the hurt, whatever it is, for a moment. But then you've developed your own anchor to bring you back, right? So you go back from a healthy state, but you still feel it, and because your mind doesn't forget.
Yeah,
it doesn't forget. And that what you just said is also really, really powerful. That, and I know we're talking, where are some of our experiences? I like to say that our experiences shape us, but our experiences are never our identity.
No,
it's never who we were. Our identity was formed before we were even born. But it's getting back to, in order to tell your story, you first have to believe it yourself. You have to buy into you.
Exactly. The most important person you have. I read that quote that I said to you. The reason why I can read it and say it and even change it from as a man thinker to as a woman thinker, because it's inside of me. You have to believe your own story. You have to believe it, not just while you're going through anything in life. You have to believe it. That's the power of once upon a time. I do a whole workshop on the power of once upon a time, because once upon a time is a time machine. It really is. Think about it. When you have children, you told them, your father, your mother said, LaWanna, yes, once upon a time. And they said, okay, you knew a story was coming. And they gave you the characters. They gave you the theme. Now that we're adults, guess what? We can add our own characters. We can create our own scenario. We're the director. We're the casting. We can do all of that. And there's power in that. So when I was homeless, I wasn't really homeless. I was a undercover reporter for National Geographic magazine. I really said that to myself, that I was deep undercover. Nobody knew about it. I was so deep, I didn't even know where the headquarters was. But I knew that they put me there to discover what homelessness was. And of course, people laughed at me and they told me stupid and everything else. But here I am today. That's how I got through it. I made myself believe that, I grew up with Marlon Perkins and remember Mutual Omaha Wild Kingdom? Yes. I was the guy. I was Marlon Perkins' assistant, and I just happened to be here studying the indigenous people who are homeless. Wow, that's not, even though I was one of them. And that's what helps. So play mind games. Tell yourself all kinds of stories. You believe Hollywood stories. You cry over Game of Thrones and 50 Shades of Grey, and you cry about that. That's just a movie that somebody wrote.
Or we believe what other people tell us about ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you said, now it's like let's flip that script. There's a scripture in the Bible where Jesus was talking to the disciples,
Mm-hmm.
and they were saying who the people said he was. He goes, okay, I know what they're saying,
Mm-hmm.
but who do you say?
Mm-hmm.
So I turn this on to you. Who do you say you are?
Yeah.
And then how are you showing up to the world? And how are you showing up for yourself?
Yeah.
And again, this we used homelessness because we want you to honor those women.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want every woman who is going through or will go through the
Mm-hmm.
dark
Mm-hmm.
side of life
Mm-hmm.
to be able to continue to remember that you matter, you
Mm-hmm.
have value, you
Mm-hmm.
have worth, you
Mm-hmm.
have purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a story.
Yeah.
And with that, Barry, we are already out of time. I want to say thank you so very much for joining me on this very
Pleasure.
special edition for Women's History Month.
My pleasure being here. Again, this is part of that promise that I made to God. So when you called me and let me know, I was just like, oh, okay, because I feel that God is watching me. I've really meant that if I ever got out of homelessness, this is the kind of work that I want to do. This is my ministry. And ladies, audience, I want you to understand. Just imagine if I went to church on a consistent basis. Oh my God, what would happen? If I really, but this is how God works. God has worked through me in so many different ways to be able to have this day with you and share it with you and your guests and your audience. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. And to our listening audience, just remember, choosing to challenge means to challenge those things that are preventing you from elevating to the highest version of you. And sometimes it's right here. And as Barry shared in the book, As a Man Thinketh, As a Woman Thinketh. So remember, you have power. You have creative power over your life. And I loved what he said, realizing that your value, realizing the ideal of your youth, that you can, that vision that you once had can be actualized. But you have to take the first step. And that first step starts with belief. So until next time, I'm LaWanna Bradford with Choose to Challenge. Again, thank you so much, Barry B. Mixon. You can contact him below and check him out on the Gem Hunter Stories on E360 TV. And please contact him just for information, words of encouragement, skill, tools, strategies on how you may be able to elevate and celebrate the gem that you are. Until next time, good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.